I spent the holidays from 2000 going into 2001 with my then girlfriend in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. We were hosted more or less by the great Brazilian drummer, DUDUKA da Fonseca, who lives here in New York up on 16th Street. And he was very gracious to us. We spent the New Year's Eve with his family. His mother has a beautiful home that overlooked Sugarloaf Mountain, I believe they called it. And I cannot say enough about Brazil. We were there for 2 weeks. We spent a week and a half in Rio de Janeiro, then went to Salvador, the home of a lot of this music, farther up the northern coast of Brazil. I believe that's correct. And when you're in Brazil, if you're familiar with bossa nova music or samba music, that feeling is in the streets. I mean, it's literally in the streets. They have all this beautiful tile work in the sidewalks, inlaid tile work. It's a city, and there's a mountain in the middle of the city that has a jungle on it. On the top of the mountain is the famous statue of Christ. Cristo Redentor, I believe, is what Donald Byrd named the song after him, after the statue, rather. And, you know, it's a beautiful cosmopolitan city. You can tell there's great corruption there. We were followed a couple times, but, you know, it's just part of being there. They have the old city, which is very colonial looking and traditional. And the last night we were there, we wanted to go see a famous Brazilian singer in the old city, and the cab driver wouldn't let us out. He said, Pelagroso, very dangerous. That was kind of wild. I was lucky enough while I was there to interview the drummer, Robertino da Silva for Modern Drummer magazine at his samba school. And that sort of began my long love affair with Brazilian music, and I really got into it. And the period from the late 50s up through the early 70s is the period I love the most. Actually, when I was covering drum and bass and electronic music in the 90s, Rio had its own strain of drum and bass that you could hear the roots of the music, but it was still drum and bass. Of course, everyone knows Antonio Carlos Jobim and Sergio Mendes. Those are the popular singers and artists that became popular in the U.S., but the artists that we don't know about are just as profound. Nera Leao, Vinicius de Moraes, Dori Kamey, Edu Lobo. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head as I run these records by. These are the records from my collection. There's just so many of them. I mean, they even have like modern Brazilian popular music, and I think it's sort of a competition. MP4, MB4, and I have a few of those records. I was even into the pre-bossa nova music. People like singers like Nelson Conglaves, I'm probably butchering his name, but sort of like Sinatra, but more laid back. I mean, the record labels out of Brazil, Elenco and Odeon had a branch there. Philips published a lot of the music. The music was just as sophisticated as anything on planet Earth in the late 50s. And Brazilian rhythms and the music is so deep and so sophisticated, it goes over the head of most Americans even now. It's an incredibly rich, deep musical culture. My friend Greg Kaz knows a lot more about it than I do. But, you know, and these records are very hard to find. But, you know, we had such a great time being in Rio. When I came back, I started bidding on Brazilian records on eBay that were so outrageous, and I lost about 12 bids to a fellow who turned out to own a Brazilian restaurant in the Lower East Side, and he was so nice. He had CDs of all these records, and he made copies along with the artwork, about 25 CDs. That was so nice of him to do that. But people there were very generous, and it's just such, once you start listening to this music, you can't not listen to it. It's a whole world unto itself. It sounds like absolutely nothing else. Wonderful vocalist, really amazing rhythms. I mean, I was a drummer, so I was very attracted to those rhythms. And samba and bossa nova alone are just, you know, they're universalized, and they're part of the currency of jazz. That's why in my Jazz Vinyl Lovers group, people compose Brazilian records, because that music is totally intertwined with jazz now because of Stan Getz and bossa nova in the early 60s. But I just wanted to show you some of this collection. This is all of my collection. I had to kind of clean up my records to find them, but I really cherish these, and I've just collected them and bought them whenever I could find them, even though they're hard to find, harder than ever now. But obviously you can probably hear a lot of this on Spotify, and I really urge you to check out this music. If you're like me, you'll have a little beginning of a lifelong love affair with Brazilian music.